The question, what is the purpose of life, has haunted philosophers and ordinary people alike for millennia. Yet somehow, despite our technological advances and scientific understanding, we're no closer to a universal answer than our ancestors were thousands of years ago. And perhaps that's exactly the point. I remember sitting across from Marcus, a client who had achieved everything society told him would make him happy. The corner office, the beach house, the family that looked perfect in holiday photos. "I have done everything right," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "So why do I feel so empty inside?" The accomplishments that once drove him now felt hollow, like props in a play he no longer wanted to perform in. This wasn't a midlife crisis. It was a midlife awakening. When we examine the neurological basis of purpose, we find something fascinating. Our brains are literally wired to seek meaning. The frontal cortex, particularly the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, activates when we engage in activities aligned with our deeper values. It's the same region that lights up during profound moments of connection. And when we experience the emotion psychologists call elevation, that warm, expansive feeling when witnessing acts of moral beauty or goodness. Yet modern life often distracts us from this internal compass. We're bombarded with external metrics of success, followers, likes, salary figures, job titles, that our unconscious minds begin to mistake for purpose itself. The hedonic treadmill keeps us running after the next achievement, the next purchase, the next relationship milestone, without ever allowing us to feel the sustained satisfaction our brains actually crave. Think about a time when you felt truly alive. I bet it wasn't when you got a promotion or bought something expensive. More likely, it was when you were fully present, maybe helping someone in need, creating something meaningful, or experiencing profound connections with another person or with nature. These moments tap into what psychologist Abraham Maslow called peak experiences, times when we temporarily transcend our everyday concerns and touch something larger than ourselves. Sarah's story illustrates this beautifully. A surgeon by training, she spent 15 years building her career at a prestigious hospital. She checked all the boxes of conventional success, but felt increasingly disconnected from her work. During a medical mission trip to rural Guatemala, something shifted. "I performed the same procedures I'd done thousands of times," she told me. "But suddenly I could see the direct impact. I wasn't just fixing bodies, I was changing lives." This clarity led her to restructure her practice, taking a significant pay cut to work with underserved communities closer to home. Her colleagues thought she was having some kind of breakdown. 5 years later, her eyes light up when she talks about her work in a way they never did before. Neuroscience supports what Sarah discovered intuitively. When we engage in pro-social behavior, actions that benefit others, our brains release oxytocin and activate reward pathways similar to those triggered by food or sex. We're biologically reinforced to find meaning through contribution. This isn't just feel-good psychology. It's hardwired into our neural architecture. But here's where many of us get stuck. We confuse purpose with passion. Follow your passion has become the mantra of graduation speeches and self-help books. Yet research suggests this advice may be fundamentally flawed. Psychologist Carol Dweck found that people who believe they need to discover their one true passion tend to give up more easily when they encounter obstacles. They view challenges as evidence they're on the wrong path, rather than natural parts of any meaningful journey. Instead, purpose often emerges gradually through engagement. We try things, pay attention to what energizes us, develop skills, and gradually refine our direction. This process-oriented approach aligns with what psychologists call a growth mindset, the belief that our abilities and interests can develop over time through effort and experience. Consider Jamie, who spent years feeling anxious about not having found his calling. He jumped from job to job, relationship to relationship, always hoping the next change would bring clarity. Eventually, through therapy, he realized he was looking for purpose as if it were an object to find rather than a relationship to develop. I started paying attention to moments when I lost track of time, he explained. Not when I was escaping through Netflix, but when I was so engaged that hours passed without notice. This led him to volunteer teaching adult literacy, which eventually evolved into a career in education policy that combines his analytical skills with his desire to create opportunity for others. What Jamie discovered mirrors research on the psychological state called flow, that experience of being so absorbed in a challenging but manageable task that your sense of time and self-consciousness temporarily disappear. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi found that people who regularly experience flow report greater life satisfaction and meaning. The activities that induce flow differ for each person, but the experience itself is universal. It points to something profound. Purpose often emerges not from grand visions, but from the quality of our engagement with whatever is before us. This perspective offers liberation from the pressure to discover some predetermined purpose inscribed in the cosmic plan. Perhaps the purpose of life isn't something to find, but something to create through how we choose to live each day. This doesn't mean purpose is arbitrary. Rather, it emerges from the intersection of our unique capabilities, what the world needs, and what deeply moves us. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, observed this even in the brutal conditions of Nazi concentration camps. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he noted that those who survived often had something to live for beyond themselves, whether reuniting with loved ones or completing unfinished work. Frankl concluded that while we cannot control all our circumstances, we retain the freedom to choose our attitude toward those circumstances. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, he wrote. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This internal locus of control correlates strongly with psychological resilience and well-being. When we view ourselves as authors of our life's meaning, rather than passive recipients of whatever happens to us, we activate neural pathways associated with agency and possibility, rather than helplessness and resignation. This doesn't mean that suffering disappears when we find purpose. Quite the opposite. Meaningful lives often involve greater challenge and struggle than merely pleasant ones. What changes is our relationship to that struggle. When connected to something that matters deeply to us, difficulties become worthwhile rather than simply painful. The research on terminally ill patients is revealing in this regard. Those who are able to frame their experience in terms of meaning, perhaps by mentoring others, strengthening family bonds, or simply modeling courage in the face of adversity, often report higher quality of life than those with less advanced disease but no sense of purpose. This suggests that meaning may be even more fundamental to well-being than comfort or longevity itself. So where does this leave us? If there's no single answer to life's purpose that applies to everyone, how do we find our own? The evidence points to several practices that can help. First, pay attention to what naturally engages you. Activities where you lose track of time and feel energized rather than depleted. These flow states offer clues about directions worth exploring. Second, look for intersection points between what you enjoy, what you're good at, and what others need. Purpose often emerges not from self-focus, but from directing our gifts towards something beyond ourselves. Third, recognize that purpose evolves. What gives your life meaning at 20 may differ from what sustains you at 40 or 60. This isn't inconsistency, but growth. Finally, remember that meaning often emerges retrospectively. We may not always feel purposeful in the moment. Sometimes it's only when looking back that we recognize the thread that connected seemingly disconnected experiences into a coherent narrative. Perhaps the most liberating truth is this: there is no singular, correct answer to what gives life meaning. The purpose of your life is not prescribed, but created through countless small choices about how you spend your attention, energy, and care. In embracing this creative responsibility, we find not just purpose, but the profound satisfaction of authoring our own story. If this made you reflect, share your thoughts in the comments. What's one belief about yourself or others you're starting to question?